this is Women's History Month. It's also just found out Endometriosis Awareness Month.
You had to get a second time.
I mean, we're working on that, and I learned about endometriosis from Karina. Definitely want to get Karina on here to explain it to everyone else, that my viewers, watchers, listeners, because it's something that I'm starting to see a little traction. A lot more people are talking about it now. Some people are unaware of some things about it. Karina is. I definitely wanted to give Karina her flowers for being an advocate for it, speaking out about it, teaching people about it. Informing like I said, myself and others. And Karina is also someone that deals with it. Not putting her business out there. She said I can say that.
Nope.
But we're gonna have that conversation as well. So once again, Karina, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. You asked me a couple of months ago.
Thank you for allowing us.
Yes. It's not something that people might want to always talk about, but like I said, you are someone that's advocating it and teaching the awareness and stuff about it. So praise you on that. Number one question, like top of my head, what is endometriosis?
So I'm not a doctor. But
you play one on TV?
I just want to say that I'm not a doctor. But endometriosis is basically tissue-like, similar or like the uterine lining of a woman's uterus, and it grows outside of the uterus. So
12-year-old boys, stop laughing
and stop thinking about what the uterus.
Stop thinking about the uterus.
Correct.
Yes.
And so what happens is this tissue grows outside of the woman's uterus. It can grow anywhere. I've heard of stories of it growing on the bowel, bladder, heart, lungs, spine. It grows anywhere. It really does not discriminate where it's going to grow. Not just the uterus, as people seem to think. And what happens is
because it's close, so it's just
right. So people assume because it's kind of a period-related diagnosis or illness, then it just automatically means it's the uterus. It's uterus related. And so what happens is during the time that we bleed every month with our menstrual cycle, these tissues start bleeding as well. And so scar tissues start forming, and over time it can start, it's a lot of pain to deal with in general, because you're obviously bleeding from places you shouldn't be bleeding, and you have scar tissue where you shouldn't have scar tissue. And sometimes it even kind of like meshes like organs together. So I've heard stories of women's, bladder and rectum fused together internally, and it's just very painful, and it just causes all these uncomfortable and just indescribable painful symptoms, whether it's every month when we have our menstrual cycle or just in general every day.
How old were you when you first were diagnosed with endometriosis?
So I was officially diagnosed when I was 26.
Okay.
I'm 28 now, so it's been 2 years, about to be 3. There is no way to diagnose it without a surgery. So I had to go under surgery. Laparoscopic surgery, and so that was the way I had a fully confirmed diagnosis. But I've been dealing with pain since I was probably as young as 23.
And just unaware of what the pain was.
Correct.
Got it. What? How did you what made you have the surgery, or when did you know that was what it was that you needed to have the surgery? Whatever.
So what happened was when I was 23, I ended up in the ER. My first ER visit was for an ovarian cyst that ruptured. And then I think I ended up a couple times after that, where you ended up taking me once to the ER as well. And it was just a lot of pain, and no one knew what to do, and they were just telling me to follow up with an OBGYN and get on some birth control and whatever, kind of start treatment for that. I did. I went to an OBGYN, I went on birth control. It seemed to it subsided a bit, the pain. But then I want to say about 24, 25, it started getting worse again. So the pain, instead of being every month, this was every day. And it was just this extreme pain in my pelvis, I couldn't describe. It would take over my hips. It just was something I've never felt in my life before. And so I actually got a referral from my OBGYN to see a specialist for it. And when I was maybe 24, I put it off for a year. I was in big denial. I kind of had an idea this is what I had, but I didn't want to confirm it, so I put it off. But then as the pain kept progressing, I eventually decided to go forward. So 2 days after my 26th birthday, I had my surgery.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. And then, yeah, they confirmed it, that I was stage 2 endometriosis.
You said you had an idea. Did you do research on it already?
I did.
Were you already aware of endometriosis?
Yes.
Okay.
So I've heard of it. I didn't really know what it was. When I had discussions with my OBGYN and my mom, we kind of had like suspicions that this is what it sounded like. Symptoms were like really similar. But like I said, there's no way to confirm it until you have the surgery because they have to see what's going on internally.
Got it.
And then, but yes, I had an idea that this is what it was, but I was just terrified to get that confirmed.
When did you first like start researching endometriosis? And stuff?
I started researching, I believe, a year before I went into, when I finally decided to go see the specialist.
What made you look it up?
Because my OBGYN had mentioned it, and I didn't know what it was, and so I wanted to be kind of aware of what this could be or what this meant for me as a woman or what this looked like for my future, and then I started doing my research.
Would you recommend like more women to look into?
Absolutely, hands down. I think one of the biggest things, which is why I advocate so much now, so, you know, one of the biggest issues that we have with this disease, it's not talked about because it has to do with a woman's menstrual. And ew, oh my god, nobody wants to talk about it. But guess what? We're women. It's part of life. It's part of life. It's human nature. It's what happens. And the thing is, when I first got my period at 10 years old, I was in excruciating pain all the time. And I'm from Dominican, Puerto Rican, and Ecuadorian culture, and they're very, you know, women should be strong. This is what you're made for. If you can't do this, then you can't handle childbirth. And so I was kind of conditioned to think like this is normal. This is what I'm supposed to believe. And so it's not.
Right.
Period pain, period cramps are supposed to make you uncomfortable, but they're not supposed to be painful.
Right.
Where they just kind of hinder you from going through your daily life. And so that was the issue with me, and so I kept thinking every time like, oh, this is normal, I'm okay, this is what I'm supposed to go through. But then it became where like, this is not normal because I'm feeling this every day and this should not be. So yes, I advocate for women to be on top of it. If you're feeling, listen to your body. If you're feeling something that you think is not normal, get it checked. It doesn't hurt.
Right. What are like symptoms or any type of occurrences or things that could be something that could maybe hint towards having it, or what could one look for? So
one of the most common, I believe, symptoms is pelvic pain. We will definitely feel pelvic pain whether you're on your period, whether it's ovulation time, you'll feel a lot of pain. I think one of the second indicators for me, at least it was pain where I had to like literally crouch in the fetal position, where I couldn't get up, where I couldn't do anything. Heavy bleeding is definitely one of them. So if you're like soaking through pads on like hours, every hour you're switching out, that's something. But definitely I think the main, even like I said, even if it's not endometriosis, one of the main symptoms though that you should be kind of concerned is if that's that pain where you can't, not even ibuprofen or Advil kind of helps.
What, through your research, what like stood out to you, or what like was like shocking to you? Like, were you aware of something like this, or like what stood out to you when you were researching and looking it up?
I think what really stood out to me was how common it is. 1 in 10 women have this disease. So if you know 10 women, chances are one of them has them. Like, you know me, here I am. Over 200,000 women have this disease. And it goes undiagnosed.
And that's worldwide?
Worldwide.
Okay.
It goes undiagnosed and goes undetected. Women go years without getting any type of diagnosis. The worst part of this disease is that it takes about not literally, but I want to say approximately 7 to 10 years to get a diagnosis. So we go through years and years of pain, and one of the funny things, not funny, but one of the things I look back at now before I got diagnosed, my OBGYN thought I was depressed or like psychotic, and that I needed to get a therapist because maybe this was just me presenting like somatic symptoms for something else. So they just thought you were overreacting to the pain. Correct. It's not that painful. It's not that painful. You're overreacting. There's something else going on at home. And I remember those uncomfortable questions. And I remember I've never been one to be disrespectful to anybody, but even I came out of my face in a way, and I was just like, I'm studying to be a mental health counselor. I know these diagnoses. Like, I think I would know what I have, or at least do my due diligence to get help if I thought I had any type of depression, anxiety, but I don't. I know what I'm feeling. And so he wanted to refer me to a therapist, and I said no. I was adamant that I wasn't going to go to one. And it's one of those things where it's like women are looked at like, You're being a wuss. Like, grow up. This is nothing.
Was that a woman that said that?
It was a man.
Oh, okay.
He's no longer my OBGYN.
I was gonna say that. Yeah. That's not a good.
For many reasons more than that, though.
Oh wow. Not going to that.
I think you should.
No. That was another episode.
Is this gonna go to a Me Too episode?
Yeah, that'd be a whole other episode.
No, Me Too. No Me Too, guys.
Okay, all right, just make sure.
No.
Yeah, he'd be like, all right, my favorite patient is here.
No.
Jared, you got any questions you want to ask?
I was listening to you speak.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you're stage 2. How many different stages are there of this?
Right now, currently, there's 4 stages.
Okay, so it's almost like, so it's kind of like the trend of cancer and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
is it a form of cancer?
It's not a form of cancer, but it should be treated like cancer in a way that it definitely takes a toll. It definitely takes a toll on you mentally, physically, spiritually. I think because there's also no treatment for it, you can look at it as cancer. There's no cause. Nobody knows the cause for it.
That's what I was going to ask that too.
Yeah, there's no cause for it. They don't know what it is. There's a lot of theories. There was one theory, I believe the Samson theory. I'm not too sure if that was it. I think that is where they say that when a woman gets her period, when a young girl gets her period, if they're younger, like if it's I guess a younger age, some of the period kind of backflows, and that's what causes like the scar tissue to build up, which has been proven incorrect.
Okay.
Then they also say genetics. It could be genetics, but in some cases, in a lot of cases, actually, the people that I know, they don't have it. So I know nobody in my family has it. I don't know about my dad's side, but I know from my mother's side, at least, we don't have it.
I was gonna say, I mean, based on certain people's cultures, and stuff, like some people will like to think, oh, that doesn't happen here, or
For sure.
whatever. So there's probably a lot of people who do go undiagnosed, and not to say, I mean, then there could be somebody in your family who may have had it and never went to check and see it, but they just thought it was something else. Too.
For sure, no, absolutely. I believe that as well. But like at least to the women that I've spoken to in my family, they say no. But again, it definitely goes back to culture. Like, did you think this was something, were you conditioned the same way that I was to believe that this is normal, and so you kind of like went about your business as nothing?
You just, like basically, you said it's just like, oh, it's your period, but you just have a different flow than others, or you get cramps more than like
some women get it worse than others, and so I don't know. I mean, I'll never really know. But it is. There's a lot of theories going around that it is genetics. There's a lot of theories going around. I actually read something recently that you can detect it as early as in a fetus. So I think they found in certain, it was like, I believe I don't remember the statistics, 9%. They found 9% of female fetuses to have it already. So we don't know now if you're born with it, and it kind of maybe activates later on as you hit puberty,
when you
start your first period. So we don't really know, and so that I think is the most frustrating part.
When you said your OBGYN said at 24 to get checked for it, and you didn't do anything about it until 26, because you're in that stage of denial. Do you think anything could have been done differently if you did it at 24?
No. I don't believe so. I mean, the reason why I say no is because there's still no treatment for it. I think I'm still on the same course that I would have been 2 years before. I think I should have done it a lot sooner, for sure. Maybe they could have caught it sooner. Maybe the pain wouldn't have been as intense now. Maybe things could have been different. Absolutely. But I still believe the course of treatment would be the same.
For endometriosis, does it affect, because I know if it affects menstrual cycle, so does it affect pregnancy also?
Yes. So it can. Which was one of the reasons why I was in denial at first, because the first thing when people think of endometriosis, if you read about it, is it can affect your fertility, for sure. Not necessarily does it mean you'll be infertile, not necessarily does it mean that you won't have children, but you can struggle with it. And there's many other diseases as well, or illnesses that can affect that. And so that was one of the things I was scared of, because I was still stuck in a moment where, as a woman, I failed. Like, my body has failed me as a woman, where I can't do what I was meant to do.
And that's a tough thought to deal with.
Right.
going back to something that Jared asked, and you mentioned that you're stage 2. What are the stage? Like, what classifies the stages?
So what classifies the stages is when they go and they do surgery. I believe it's a point system they use. The surgeons, when I say they, or the doctors, they use a point system, and they and as many points, I guess, or as many lesions that they can find, they'll start kind of putting you in the stages. So I was a stage 2, but I just want to clarify, just because you're like in stage 1, stage 2, doesn't mean that you have less pain than what a stage 4 patient would look like.
Because it just depends on where and...
Correct. It depends where it is, what's affecting it. And so sometimes people think, well, stage 4 has it so much worse, and oh my God, their pain must be so intense. But sometimes it's, no, stage 2 actually, which is what my surgeon told me. She said, you're a stage 2, but just because you're a stage 2 doesn't mean that your pain... it may be more severe than a stage 4.
Got it. Can it worsen? Can you upgrade to 3?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
The lesions keep growing.
Gotcha.
Unless you're under a course of treatment, the lesions keep growing.
Are you under treatment?
No.
Okay.
I am not.
You don't need it?
I've been kind of torn about it.
Okay.
I do need it. Absolutely. The reason why I didn't do what they were asking me to do is because the course of treatments that they have are not necessary. And I'm not saying this that it doesn't work for some. I'm sure it does. But when I did my research, I didn't want to do what they wanted me to do because it required putting a lot of harmful chemicals into my body.
Got you.
And what that is, kind of just like give you guys like a rundown of it. Like one of the course of treatments they wanted me on was Lupron, and so Lupron is an injection. It's kind of like a form of chemo. And what it does, it kind of puts you into a chemical induced menopause. And so I would have put my body into menopause at 26, but
super early.
Yeah, super early, right? And what happens then is, yes, it could have stopped the lesions from growing for sure, and I wouldn't have a period. But what happens in that case, I have all the symptoms and side effects of a person with menopause. And there's just many other risks, like osteoporosis. You would have to do a bone density check every 3 months to make sure that the Lupron is not affecting your bones. And so there was just more risk than benefits for me.
Yeah, that's a lot to do it at such an early age.
Right.
And it's also, menopause is a body shifting phase for women. I'm a man. I'm not speaking as I know. I'm just saying from what I heard that a lot of women go through a change. The hot flashes, the cold flashes, or your body. But that's something No, I'm not, and I have nothing against those that are.
Do you speak from personal experience?
No, I'm speaking from talking to people. I've heard, but that's something like you said, at an early age, and for a period of time to deal with, and it's changing your body.
Yeah.
A chemical that's changing your body is a big adjustment in itself, and that too could cause some mental, depression and thoughts.
Absolutely.
And that's a big thing to think about as well. So
absolutely. And I mean, I battled years before that. I battled years with birth control, and birth control completely transformed my body into something that I was not proud of. And so I already had that kind of in my head, and I was just like, no, I'm going to do more research on what I can do to help myself without having to resort to these chemicals. And
I advise everyone that is watching and listening to do research as well. Like Karina said, she is not a doctor. She's given the facts that she can, as much as she can right now. There's way more to it. Bodies are different. Not everyone's the same. Other experiences may vary.
Conditions are different.
Conditions are different.
So please don't just take her word for it. We're starting the conversation. The conversation continues. Anyone who can relate to even minute, any small fact of what she's saying, make sure, and do your own research. Look up stuff.
Check up on your strong
Check up on, you know what I mean? And just make sure, health is wealth. Like you said, 1 in 10.
1 in 10.
That's that's a lot. And this is something that like I said, I've just been made aware of this maybe 3-4 years ago. Something like that. That I've never heard of it until you mentioned it, and I was like, what is that? And it's something that's really. I mean, right now we're all talking about the coronavirus. The flu's been here for years, and people have been dying from the flu, but the coronavirus is the hotness. It's the new. Everybody talking about it, but endometriosis exists. There's a lot of things that exist. People, just don't just get caught up in hypes. There's just know yourself, find out about yourself.
And honestly, the coronavirus has been around for years too.
Yeah, it has. Like I said, it's the trend now. You know, it's the trend now.
It's the new SARS.
Right. I mean, yeah, Ebola,
The
SARS,
swine flu, remember that?
Oh my God, that was fine.
Yeah, there's always something. You know, what I'm
we
saying?
had chicken pox and chicken.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So we are not. You know, we're just saying. You know, it's real out here. You know, you just don't know what you have, and like you said, there could be women who may have that or other things and just shrug it off as just, you know, oh, my flow is heavy, or this is the pains, is the cramps, and you know, you just don't know what it could be.
There could be women who, as you said, could just be in denial.
Yeah.
Because they don't want. It's because I know people who thought they've had cancer or something else, and they like, I don't want to check because I don't want to know.
Right, I just don't want to know.
You're scared to know the truth, but sometimes knowing the truth early can kind of temper certain things from happening later on.
I think it's the unknown that's scary. And so I think for me that's what it was, just the unknown and possibilities of what was happening to me. But now I know, and so